this now is a strategy. And if you don't like it, you've got to vote, because I'm going to tell you from a strategic perspective. I was just talking about this with a few different people. From a strategic perspective, this appears to be radically boosting Joe Biden's chances today. If you don't like it, don't attack the messenger, get out and vote. Can Joe Biden combine his momentum from overperforming in South Carolina with the endorsements of multiple centrist candidates who have pulled out and endorsed him? Can he turn that into some victories outright tonight and potentially deny Bernie Sanders the nomination? The betting money believes that the answer is yes. The projections believe that the answer is yes. But people are still voting today, and I want to be as realistic as possible about this. It might work and it might not. And what it's going to come down to is what happens in California, what happens in North Carolina, what happens later this month in some of the later primaries. This is now basically an election between Biden and Bernie. Now, Elizabeth Warren and Michael Bloomberg still have roles to play. They just don't have a shot at the nomination. That's the important thing to understand. Elizabeth Warren is still in the race. In Massachusetts, it's not likely that she wins, but it is likely that she gets delegates. Does she get out after tonight? Does she wait until later in the race? What exactly is she trying to get out of this? A month and a half ago, would have said Warren would be very likely to endorse Bernie Sanders. Bernie would be very likely to choose Warren as a VP. I don't think either of those things is true at this point in time, and we will see what Elizabeth Warren's future is after tonight. Michael Bloomberg is going to get some delegates tonight in all likelihood. Michael Bloomberg also doing well in the upcoming primary state of Florida later on. So is Bloomberg likely to get out tonight or tomorrow? I actually don't think so, although there will be pressure on him because, again, Bloomberg out would further bolster Joe Biden. And there's been a debate going on within the left about Bernie Sanders' ceiling. And it has become so tired and wrought to hear corporate media talking heads say, Bernie's polling 15 in a 7 or 8 way race. 20 might be his ceiling. And then Bernie polls 20 and they say, well, Bernie's polling 20 in what is effectively a 5 or 6 candidate race. His ceiling is probably 25. Then Bernie polls 25 and they say he couldn't get more than 30. 70% of the electorate will always be against Bernie. May not be true, because so far every single one of those ceilings that has been pointed out by someone on CNN or MSNBC has been broken through. That doesn't mean a ceiling doesn't exist, and it will be tested today with the dropping out of Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg, and Michael Bloomberg may indeed be a factor in a number of tonight's contests. So let's now look at the big picture. There are a number of models in which Joe Biden tonight could, the word is could, and it depends on you going out and voting, Biden could come out of tonight with more delegates than Bernie Sanders. However, even if he does not, it is important to look at the path forward, and this is why it is imperative that if Bernie Sanders wants to continue on his path to the nomination, he doesn't need just some wins tonight. He actually needs some big wins, and I'll tell you in which states momentarily. As you know, Bernie has been leading all sorts of states, including, for example, California heading into today. But again, I'm being realistic with you. When Joe Biden won South Carolina, that built momentum. He then gained some polling support, and after that, Pete and Amy dropped out. And now there are people, mark my words, there are people who were moving away from Biden because he's been embarrassingly implosive during the campaign, who are going back to Biden as they perceive him to maybe have a shot at this thing. So the question is, will it be enough? And there's only one group of people that can determine that. People like me who went and voted today. It's people like you, many of whom voted or will be voting. The 538 primary forecast now has reversed and has Joe Biden as the most likely candidate to secure 50% plus one. Still, the most likely single scenario is no one gets a majority of the delegates before the convention. That scenario ranked as 60% likely to happen, according to 538. Joe Biden now, 31% likelihood of securing the nomination, and Bernie Sanders down to 8%. Now, if you don't like this, then you just have to vote. That's the path forward. The models I'm looking at basically have Bernie voters coming out anywhere from 125 or so delegates ahead, potentially all the way down to tied. My only prediction is, if Bernie is ahead tonight by under 35 delegates, I believe it actually favors Biden, because a lot of those remaining states are southern states in which Biden is likely to do well, as well as some northern states like New York, in which there will be a roughly even split. The key states I'm looking at tonight, first of all, California. California, Bernie's been surging for weeks, and it is a big prize, 416 delegates. If Bernie wins California by 17, he's winning in some polls by 17, that is a major delegate advantage for Bernie tonight. Bernie wins California by 5 or 7, the way the latest polls look. It is not going to be a big delegate margin for him, and that could eat away at the delegate lead that Bernie needs coming out of tonight. The second state I'm looking at is North Carolina. North Carolina is much more racially diverse than the early primaries, other than South Carolina, and Biden has been surging there recently. Biden's margin in North Carolina, if he does win, is something that I would be paying attention to. And then lastly, I believe Minnesota is going to be an interesting signal, because Minnesota is Amy Klobuchar's home state. According to one poll done very recently, from her dropping out and endorsing Biden, Biden has gone from 8 in Minnesota to 27 in Minnesota, almost tying Bernie Sanders. If Minnesota is something like Bernie 32 and Biden 27, the way one poll has it right now, that is going to show that the DNC strategy worked. If this sounds bad to you, if this doesn't sound like what you want to see happen, there's one thing you can do, which is go and vote. And like right now, especially if polls are about to close in your state. And number two, get other people to go out and vote. We'll have live stream results tonight. Don't miss it. YouTube, Facebook, as well as Twitch. Look forward to seeing you there.
Well, Mom and Dad just took me off their car insurance, leaving me with the bill. Forsaken and abandoned. So it's a good thing that Safe Auto offers a low down payment.
You're still living in our house.
I've been posting videos to this cool new platform, Rizzle. The videos can be up to 60 seconds long. I often use it to ask the audience questions. People respond with their own video messages, and then I respond to them. It's very, very cool. After posting 30 videos of your own, you can get sponsored by the community and make money. New creators are able to have their videos seen by many, many people, and the platform just works really well on mobile. Every week, Rizzle also hosts fun video competitions where you can win money. Check it out. Follow me on Rizzle. Use the link down in the video description.
The Democratic primary campaign. When it started, it was all kumbaya, let's beat Trump together. But now it's turned into a season of Game of Thrones. Everyone backstabbing. The House of Bernie has grown in strength and size while facing a challenge from the Kingdom of Buttigieg. Meanwhile, the once powerful Lord Biden is slowly watching his influence slip away. And don't forget, once they're all done fighting each other, they will have to face off against the ultimate enemy, the White King. But, just like Game of Thrones, there's one character who's been off in the wings plotting the whole time, the Imp. You see, national polls now have billionaire Mike Bloomberg moving into third place. And President Trump has taken notice of this big little threat, and he's already trying to defeat him in a trial by Twitter.
A Twitter war heating up between President Trump and one of the men who wants to take his job. The president took aim at former mayor Mike Bloomberg, saying Mini Mike is a 5'4" mass of dead energy who does not want to be on the debate stage with these professional politicians. No boxes, please. Bloomberg responded, writing, "We know many of the same people in New York. Behind your back, they laugh at you and call you a carnival-barking clown. They know you inherited a fortune and squandered it with stupid deals and incompetence. I have the record and the resources to defeat you, and I will."
This This is crazy. Two mega rich dudes dissing each other in the most personal way. It would be like if a rap battle was on CNBC. And the sad part for me is that billionaire feuds used to be so much more dignified. You know? Yeah, back in the day, it wasn't on Twitter. They'd be like, Mr. Trump, I have commissioned a devastating opera that disparages both you and your lineage. Be like, well, Master Bloomberg, at this very moment, a team of artisans is sculpting a middle finger from the world's finest Italian marble. In 8 to 9 months, you will be truly owned. But right now, Donald Trump is the least of Mike Bloomberg's problems. See, the real threat to Bloomberg's campaign is his past.
Mike Bloomberg facing new criticism tonight amid audio that has surfaced on the controversial policy of stop and frisk.
Bloomberg is under fire tonight after a 2015 speech surfaced where he defends his controversial stop and frisk policy and explained why cops are put in minority neighborhoods.
95% of your murders and murder victims is one MO. You can just take the description, Xerox it, pass it out to all the cops. They are male minorities, 15 to 25. We put all the cops in minority neighborhoods. Yes, that's true. Why we do it? Because that's where all the crime is. And the way you get the guns out of the kids' hands is to throw them against the wall and frisk them.
Wow. That is not a good look. Think about it. While Bloomberg is out there trying to win the black vote in 2020, he's on tape in 2015 talking about black people like they're crime piñatas. Just throw them against the wall, see what comes out. Could be a gun, could be a Tootsie Roll. It's fun. This is not a good look. Getting caught on tape encouraging police to harass black people is definitely going to hurt you with black voters. It's the same way you would lose white voters if a tape came out of you saying that pets aren't the same as babies. Yeah. All the pumpkin spice in the world can't save you after that. White people would be mad. This is my baby. Now, if it was just one bad audio clip, maybe Mike Bloomberg could get past it and move on. The problem is, Mayor Mike has a long history of defending stop and frisk, and now even video clips are coming out.
And yet another video clip drops tonight, purporting to show Mayor Mike Bloomberg discussing hot topics with racial overtones.
They just keep saying, oh, it's a disproportionate percentage of a particular ethnic group. I think we disproportionately stop whites too much and minorities too little.
Yeah. According to Mike Bloomberg, white people were the real victims of stop and frisk. Imagine that. Black people and Latinos spent years, saying that they were being harassed by the police. And Bloomberg's response was, I hear you. We have been unfair to white people. It almost feels like if Bloomberg was Abraham Lincoln, he would have ended slavery, but for the totally wrong reason. Be like, we need to end this cruel abomination. Too many white people are getting carpal tunnel in their whipping hands. We've got to help them. Now, since these clips came out, Bloomberg has been facing a lot of pressure to explain himself. And something tells me he's struggling with how to respond.
Campaigning in Tennessee today, Michael Bloomberg expressed regret for comments from 2015 about New York City's controversial stop and frisk policy.
Mr. Mayor, why did you say what you said in that 2015 speech?
I can safely say I've never seen the 3 typing dots in real life. Look at him. You never see him like this. Mike Bloomberg hasn't been this stressed since he got into that fight in the subway. But my bad, I shouldn't have interrupted. I'll let him answer.
I don't think those words reflect how I led the most diverse city in the nation. And I apologized for the practice and the pain that it caused.
But why did you say it?
It was 5 years ago, and it's just not the way that I think, and it doesn't reflect what I do every day.
Yeah, of course it doesn't reflect what you do every day. You're not the mayor anymore. Nobody thinks you're stopping and frisking black people on your personal time. I mean, mostly because you can't reach their pockets. But also, it's weird that he tries to dismiss those clips by saying it was 5 years ago. 5 years? What difference is that supposed to make? for you. Huh? Look, 5 years ago, I was just a 72-year-old man. I didn't know any better. I'm much older now, which automatically makes you less racist. But clearly, the comments in those clips do reflect what Bloomberg was doing as mayor, right? For the simple reason that it's what he did as mayor. You don't have to be a genius to figure this out. As much as Bloomberg is trying to reposition himself now that he needs the support of black voters, he encouraged his police department to treat black people like they were all criminals. And even as he keeps trying to apologize, he's never really taking responsibility for what he did. You know, he apologizes for pieces. Oh, I ran a diverse place. He's not saying sorry for what he actually did. It would be like if you got caught cheating and your apology was, babe, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that I didn't delete those messages from my phone. I should have hid them better. It's like, no, that's not, yeah, no, you're right. I should have smashed in the hotel instead of our bed. You're right. I've learned my lesson. Yeah, your friends are off limits. From now on, strangers only, baby. Strangers only. So that's where Mike Bloomberg is now. As much as he tries to move forward and get out of this, reporters won't let the story go. They keep hassling him at events, questioning him about his motives, just trying to find any little thing that he's done wrong. It must be so frustrating for him. And to that I say, Mike Bloomberg, welcome to the world of stop and frisk. We'll be right back. You know, the biggest issue I think I have and many other people have with Mike Bloomberg and how he's defending his stop and frisk record is that he doesn't seem to know what he's defending. And that for me is a problem. You know, he goes, oh, I apologize for the policy. And people are not as angry about the policy, I think, as how the policy was targeted. Because for so many years, especially in America, black people have said, hey, the police are targeting us just because we're black. They treat us like we're all criminals. They're not just trying to go for criminals. And what would people say to people? Oh, you overreacted. Cops are not just going to throw you against the wall. You must have done something. And I can imagine for a long time, for many black Americans, it must have felt like being gaslit. You know what's happening to you. You say what's happening to you, and people are like, that's crazy. And I can imagine how for many white people in America, they're like, that is crazy. You just get thrown against the wall? Why? You must have been doing something. Because white people are like, I've never been thrown against the wall. That would never happen to me. What? You just get thrown against the wall? That's it? I see cops all the time. I say, hello, officer. They say, hello, sir. And then I keep walking. You just get thrown against the wall? That doesn't make any sense. And I can imagine. And then a lot of black people are like, you white people are being racist because you don't. And white people are like, that is insane. Cops will not just throw. And I can see how people have lived in these worlds for so long. And then now you have audio of Mike Bloomberg saying, and that audio for me, if you break it down into pieces, has so many issues with it. First of all, the fact that he says, if you look at criminals and victims of crime, etc., you can Xerox. You can just copy and paste it and put it out there. It shows me that you didn't even care about the differences between black people. You made it seem like black is crime, when in fact black is most affected by crime. That is the thing that you did there, right? That's the first problem I have. Secondly, the fact that people don't seem to realize the ramifications of treating people like that. Imagine if you are a black kid living in Mike Bloomberg's New York City. Every day, you're getting frisked and thrown against the wall. Put over the hood of a car every day. This is what cops are this is your life. Now imagine if you are a black kid who lives in this world. The cop gets you, throws you into a wall. You got something, you carry it. Next day it happens again. Maybe next week, maybe next month, whenever it is. At some point, what do you say? Fuck the police. Yeah? And then you get people like, why don't you respect the police? Why don't they respect me? They don't protect and serve me. These people come and throw me against the wall and treat me like a criminal. You know what I mean? And then what does that kid do one day? They see the cops, they go, screw this, I'm not staying around for this. They run away. The cops pursue. Now they catch you. What are you? You're evading arrest. You're resisting arrest. Now you get arrested for resisting arrest. Then you go to jail. You can't afford bail. Now you're in prison. What does prison turn you into more likely than not? A criminal. Right? And even if you don't become a criminal because of that, you are still in the system now. We've seen how these kids get locked up. They can't afford to come out. Now they are living a life of crime without being a criminal. And then you're just like, oh, but these kids spend all their time in jail. How did they get to jail? Why were you running from the cops? Because I was tired of being thrown against the motherfucking wall. I'm not going to stick around for that. I remember that in high school. I didn't wave. The bully came and I was like, oh, shit. And I was gone. I wasn't going to stand there and be like, yeah, well, good afternoon, bully. Nice to see you again. Different thing today. Yes, are we going to talk this out? No, at some point you knew the bully was going to do what he's going to do, so you ran before they even got to you. And then people are like, why are these kids running away? They don't respect the police. But do the police respect them? And that is something no one can deny. If you've ever been in a rich neighborhood specifically, not just a white neighborhood, but a rich neighborhood, you will see the relationship that police have with those communities. It's very different. because they know if they throw the wrong person, search the wrong person, frisk the wrong person, that person knows someone powerful enough to make sure that their job is in danger. And those are the dynamics that you're dealing with here. And so my problem with Mike Bloomberg is he's not saying, I'm sorry for targeting black people. I'm sorry for treating black people like second-class citizens. I'm sorry for gaslighting black people for so long. No, he's just like, I'm sorry that stop and frisk happened to affect black communities. It's like, no, it didn't happen to. You designed it to.
Need an oil change? Get one today at Valvoline Instant Oil Change. No appointment needed.
You know,
That's where
you put $100 million in there, you're hitting the story about Texas, that it's like, you know,
That's where
you put $100 million in there, you're hitting the story about Texas, that it's like perennially a state that Democrats could win,
Right.
is very much, I think, a consultant grift.
Oh, I think you're probably right.
Because the huge media markets, and that's like there's a big markup. The way that, just be clear on this, the way that, you know, media consultants work is they go out, they buy the media for you, local advertisements, radio, but mostly TV, and they get a markup.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, 10%. I mean, it's almost like the same scam as the private health insurance, where it's like we're capped at 20% profits.
But
so, okay, guess what, hospital? Jack up the prices.
Yeah, exactly.
And our 20%
gets a lot
gets
higher.
a lot bigger.
Yeah.
It's just math.
Right. Like Bloomberg as a person who has been grifted is like probably an underrated storyline, but because like everyone he hired only knows how to do one kind of campaigning, and they did it.
I mean, it's kind of like Parasite. He has so much money that they barely even recognize.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet.
I mean, like that's not a spoiler. Really? Anyway, but you know, like he has so much money, like grifting him, like he doesn't even notice. He doesn't care. It's like
right. I think that's true.
And when you're that sheltered,
we can't hear you. You're not on mic. Are we
on a break? No, I was wasting all that gold.
Oh yeah.
sorry.
Thank you guys for hanging in. Oh, we're live right now? Are we? Wow. Well,
if you're just joining us,
we're having a little bit of communication issues. We'll start right back up. Okay, so let's just start this. I've got an ad too, right? A Capterra today. This is going to be Wednesday's program, so why don't we just give us the intro?
Viability here, Warren, 13%. So.
Majority Report with Sam Cedar. The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite. Sam Cedar. They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred. We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought.
This is continuing special coverage of Super Tuesday into Super Wednesday, ladies and gentlemen. Not so Super Wednesday. This is obviously the Majority Report. Many of you will be hearing this on Wednesday, March 4th. We are doing a recap of Super Tuesday as of 11:10 p.m. Eastern. The results are in for, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of the, 14 states?
And American Samoa.
And American Samoa. Can we just all agree, like, we're not going to pay attention to American Samoa? Sorry. There's like 600 people who voted there. So 9 of the states are in. The 2 biggest states are Texas and California. They have not been called. They will be called. Let's listen to Massachusetts here, because I'm curious as what's going on in Worcester. Now, Joe Biden appears to be
second at 26.5. Again, round up to 27. This has to be the shock of the night. Elizabeth Warren running third.
I got to tell you, not a huge shock to me.
I'm shocked she did that well, to be honest.
She will get delegates.
I'm here with Alex Perrine, Brandon Sutton, obviously Jamie and Matt and Brendan are here as well. So basically, where we're at this point, there are still 5 states extant. Biden leads in 2, Sanders leads in 2. I think that, and there's a projection here as we speak.
Projects that Bernie
Sanders just won Utah. We
presidential
completely mystified by what's going on.
We don't know. Yeah, we don't
why
have any.
Utah is so specifically Bernie friendly.
I think it's Reagan.
But so Colorado, Utah, Vermont, Sanders has won at this point. For Biden, Alabama, Arkansas, Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Virginia. So let's turn that down unless there's any new news. We still have Texas. We still have California extant. I think it's a safe bet that Sanders is going to win California, but we're not going to really.
We won't know for a long
the extent for a long time. We're talking like
weeks, like literally weeks.
Weeks
for the final number. I think we'll have a better sense of by tomorrow and the next day. We'll have a better sense of sort of what the broad numbers are, but we won't know final numbers for weeks.
So overall, I think we can say this has been a disappointing night for Sanders. That Biden has. There's a lot of people who seem to have decided very late, and that they decided to. They went with Biden based upon sort of the momentum and the notion. Sanders has now been projected to win the California Democratic primary. So I mean, I think that was. We saw some of the exit polling. And we're going to talk about that in a minute because I think there's the big story coming out of this. Well, there's 3 big stories, I think.
Yeah.
You guys weigh in on this. One is Biden obviously surging and gaining the confidence that he can beat Trump from a lot of the voters. The other is what's Elizabeth Warren going to do? Because she has the ability to change the tenor of the race, I think, to the extent that anything can before the next debate. And frankly, we got 10 states before the next debate. So something has to happen between now and next Tuesday. And then the third thing, which I think people are going to hear about quite a bit, is if California is any measure, and we see this in Texas, and Colorado, because we haven't seen, I don't think we've seen any exit polling for Colorado. Maybe we can look for that, guys. Sanders could be dominating in a sort of a unique way with Hispanic Latino voters. Just to give you a sense of what we're talking about in California. Hold on now. We got a projection here.
Massachusetts, very So CNN's being a little more cautious than AP, it sounds like.
Biden has won Massachusetts as well. So that's he wins 8. Now, we don't know the delegate split here.
Right. I think,
and that's, I don't think the delegate splits are going to be as dramatic as the numbers we're looking at, but, it's hard to say. And so much of this is about a narrative. But, if I was, I'd be curious right now what Trade Sports says about a brokered convention.
I think it's important that it's important to say that Biden won the narrative tonight, even if by the time all the votes are counted, the delegate difference is very small. Because the reason he won the narrative tonight and did so well is because he won the narrative over the last few days.
Yeah,
this is a continuation. This is a response. This is a continuation of a story that was created over the last few days.
Yeah, I mean, I think it also, like, to just piggyback that, for my mind, what's going to be the big stories tomorrow is, like, Biden sweeps the, Super Tuesday results, gets all these states, but also, Biden proves that once you move out of the all-white states, once you move, the all-white states, he dominates, right? Once you start getting into African-American voters, because they're going to try to reduce down, like, people of color down to African-American older voters in the South and try to do their best to sweep the, basically Sanders dominating the Latino vote in Nevada and California and most likely Texas to portray Biden as this candidate who, like, it has this diverse coalition that everyone is coming towards, right? So I think it's going to be key, at least from Sanders' perspective, to highlight the fact that yes, Biden is dominating a very specific subpopulation of black people in the South who are more ingratiated with the Obama world, with the establishment, but Sanders is building this more burgeoning coalition of Latino voters, younger black voters who otherwise would not be voting in the primary or general election at all. And so, like, that needs to be the kind of story that Sanders' campaign is working from. That, hey, yeah, I mean, not to be rude, but certain votes, as Pete Buttigieg did with his imaginary black supporters, like, can be taken a little bit for granted. Like, hey, the older black votes, they're going to come out for Dems. Unfortunate, but true. The people who we need to be focusing on are the Latino voters, coalescing them around Sanders, the younger black voters who otherwise would stay home. And so, like, his searches there are very important.
The low propensity voters.
Yeah. Well, so I would say that what you're going to hear is that because youth turnout was so low, Sanders once again showed he can't bring these people out consistently. But you're talking about bringing them out to defeat Joe Biden versus bringing them out to defeat Donald Trump. Like, people who are highly invested like we are want to defeat Joe Biden.
Right.
I mean, these people are they're like, oh, I like Sanders the best. Biden seems fine. I would go out to, I really don't think turnout, like, can even be compared from a primary to a general.
It's very hard to break this stuff out. I mean, we have some areas where the turnout has been enormous. What state was it that
Virginia,
yeah. the turnout was enormous,
almost double way.
And so there's a lack of data on this. Yeah. I think that is there. Like, it's unclear who is coming out and who's not coming out, and it would make sense to me just based upon canvassing in Massachusetts and just sort of like just conversations across the country that I've had with people. They want Trump out.
Yeah.
And they're not as invested. There's a certain group of people, I don't know who they are, that are not as invested in, like, which Democrat it is. I think that's what happened with Biden. It was just like, oh, I'm being told to vote.
I'm being told this is the one.
Well, they don't perceive a policy difference between Democrats sometimes because, like what Brandon was saying, they don't see how it affects their lives. They're like, Democrat's a Democrat, They maybe haven't dug that deep into what Bernie Sanders stands for. Or maybe I'm wrong. Who knows?
So 2 points. First, I'll be interested to see how youth voter turnout actually pans out once all the votes are counted. Because in the beginning, it was very much like, oh, yeah, the youth turnout is not happening. But then, we're hearing, people are waiting in line 3 hours, 2 hours to vote.
In certain places, yeah.
So, like, youth vote turnout was an early narrative that they tried to push, I think, to, make Biden's win seem a lot more grandiose than it's going to turn out to be in the end. Not to say he won't win these 9 states still, but, like, I think the margins, especially as the youth vote comes in, people leaving school, showing up late, waiting in line from 7 to 10, they're going to do better. And second, to Jamie's point, I don't know, I mean, not to contradict myself, but I think that it's true that there are very little substantial difference between Democrats, and a lot of parties sort of feels that way. Like, any blue will do. But I also think that the opposite is true too. That when you have, like, 2 candidates like Buttigieg and Klobuchar coalesce around one candidate, it gives the illusion that they are like that if there was diversity amongst these 3 people, that it can be assuaged by putting.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, it's a natural human reaction to see, like, everybody's hanging out with that dude.
Everyone's coming around.
Right. Yeah. I mean, now give me 1 second here because I just message from our sponsor. I've talked about Capterra quite a bit. This site is actually pretty fun. I don't know, Alex, if you've or Brandon, Brandon, you seem to be pretty happy with your career. For me, I'm like constantly wishing that, if like I knew how to do anything else. And the thing about Capterra, it's a site where they have aggregated 700 categories of software for 700 different businesses. And then they have like 25 pieces of software for each one of these businesses. And it's Capterra. It's a website that millions of people use on a monthly basis to find this software. It gives you the opportunity to sort of like filter by price and by features. You compare the top options side by side. There's like millions of reviews. It's totally free. Like I say, 700 specific categories of software, from like things that I didn't even know were businesses, like dog walking software, like prison management software. I mean, that's not necessarily, but there's all sorts of just it's stunning. Like I just sometimes browse through it just to think like, hey, that's a business I could do, or something like that. There's over 1 million reviews of the products.
Like to browse.
Honestly, it's sort of fun. It's completely free, and no matter what kind of software your business needs, Capterra makes it easy for you to find the right solution fast. And like I say, there's solutions there that you may not even realize about that exist for problems that you have. So check out Capterra. You can visit capterra.com/majority for free today. Find the right software choice for your business. Capterra.com/majority. Capterra. That's CAPTERRA.com/majority. Capterra software selection simplified. Check it out. Honestly, folks, it's fun. It's a parlor game for me. Like they had like instant messaging stuff. Anyways, all right. So back to the point. Like Biden's back in it. He may be at the end of the day in the lead in terms of delegates. He may not be, and the end of the day is sort of how you define that.
Yeah.
Right. Like we could be talking by Friday. Maybe Sanders overtakes the lead. California's just really slow.
It's really slow to count, yeah.
But I think it's clear that every dream that the Biden people had in terms of what the narrative would be after Super Tuesday relative to what it was 4 days ago has been largely fulfilled.
So I would like to, if you don't mind, pivot to Warren, the Warren part of this thing, because from my perspective, like these results, fourth in most states, third in a few, signals her campaign is just absolutely in free fall. And for me, the longer she stays in the race, the less leverage she has with whatever candidate she's going to be negotiating with when she drops out. The best time for her to drop out would have probably been right after New Hampshire. She was still riding high. She could have made the argument that, hey, if we, pulling me into the Sanders coalition, like it will guarantee that that doesn't happen. That Super Tuesday doesn't happen. But her results of Super Tuesday in a lot of these states, a lot of these key states, weren't really that. The argument that she is a necessary component to the Bernie Sanders movement of victory, I think becomes a waning prospect the longer she stays in this race, and the more she loses supporters organically.
Yeah. So on that topic, people have been asking me, and we've been discussing, would it maybe be more helpful if Warren stays in until the convention so she can give her delegates to Bernie? And I think one thing that's certainly been hammered home to me tonight is the importance of the narrative and the narrative at any given moment in time. So given that fact, it would make way more sense for her to drop out early on, because that's when the momentum and the narrative is really going to matter for Bernie. If she waits until the convention to try to help him out, it could be over.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. This is an email that Warren sent out as a grassroots supporter. You're at the heart of this movement. We want to give you an update on what's happening with Super Tuesday. 14 states devoted today. Results are still coming in from across the country. In fact, we may not know the full results from Texas, California, and Colorado for a few days. I don't know when this was put out, but Colorado's already been called. Delegates have to be counted and allocated by congressional district or state senate district.
Similar allocation, which could take a few days to figure out.
Oh, I see. Okay, but here's the bottom line. There are 6 more primaries just 1 week away, and we need your help to keep up the momentum. Seriously?
Strong third. I mean, Pete was sending these out hours before he quit.
That's right.
Hours before he quit, Pete was sending these out.
Right. And in some respects, it's like, we may have a couple of bills we got to take care of before we exit the race.
Seriously.
But from my perspective, we are at the peak leverage that Warren could, or even, like, look, we can look back 3 or 4 days ago. I don't think it would have been in her best interest to have left the race 3 or 4 days ago, because it didn't necessarily look like it would have the same value.
Yeah.
But there is no doubt that the peak value to Warren, right? Just let's assume for a moment that all politicians function in what their best interest is, which I think is like a fairly safe place to be.
Yeah.
Her peak value, it seems to me, is between today and Tuesday for Bernie Sanders. There is no path for her to win at this point. And she could go and endorse Biden, but what's the value to Biden?
She can't bring anything to Biden.
She can't bring anything to Biden at this point.
And also, just from that perspective, like, for her to endorse Biden, I think would be such a mask off moment for, like, what she's actually about, because she can't possibly think that people think she can work for the Biden administration.
Right.
Like, for anything that she, even the, like, let's say that if you, whatever else she's gone on about for this election, I believe that she has a narrow stretch of expertise that she's interested in enacting when it comes to financial and banking reform. Like, she can't possibly believe that she can get that done with Biden, coalition with Biden. So for her to align with Biden, forget not endorsing anybody, would be like such a heel turn that like just goes against what I would argue her entire career has been theoretically about. That it would be shocking to a degree that I don't think it's possible.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, she's only making like her career and her goals more and more unattainable for herself the longer she stays in this race, and the longer she decides to keep the necessary coalition with her and the Bernie Sanders administration like off the table.
She's being taken for a ride by these consultants, like you were saying, Brandon.
I think we need to decide, see this week. I'm
curious.
I think, like I say, I don't know that her dropping out Wednesday is better than her dropping out Thursday. Personally, if it was up to me, if I was on the Sanders campaign and the Warren people called me and said, let's talk, my first reaction would be, I want to wait and see what Bloomberg does, because what I don't want is Warren to endorse Bernie
and then
Wednesday and then Bloomberg on Thursday step on the story. I want Bloomberg to endorse Biden, and then I want Warren to come in and shift because I want the momentum going into next Tuesday. And so I'm thinking, if I'm the Sanders campaign and Warren calls, or we call Warren and we talk, I would say like Thursday, Friday, maybe even Sunday.
Yeah. I agree. I don't think that although the other side of that Bloomberg has so much money that he could just stay in past. He could stay in. He probably won't. He could stay in as long as he.
I don't think there's any reason to anymore.
There's no reason to, exactly. But this particular letter doesn't mean anything to me. It could just be signaling to the Sanders campaign that, hey, you know what, I'm willing to stay in this until the end if you don't give me what I want.
But
if you don't give me what I want.
But the thing is like
exactly.
I believe that leak that they were looking into, could she be his treasurer and secretary of treasury and vice president? I just don't think that they.
Assuming good faith on her part, I think it would be very good for her to be freed from her campaign.
Yeah. Yep.
And
you should send her some help.
And the best case scenario for her at this point, is she is the happy face of the Sanders campaign, the happy, competent face that reassures the liberals that he will be someone they can vote for.
Yeah. And
then Sanders wins presidency and she gets whatever. That's the best case scenario for her.
Yeah.
And I think if she is being realistic about her chances, then she will see that.
Another thing about this that I just realized, we've been banding about names of people that maybe Bernie would announce as his VP pick, right? if you were going to do that.
That seems like a desperation play.
And no, what I'm saying is, as long as Warren is still in play, he can't draft Ayanna Pressley. Right?
What do you mean?
Because she's like one of the most prominent surrogates.
Yeah, I don't think Sanders is going to announce his VP.
No?
No. I just don't.
That's not a thing that is usually done this early.
I don't think that Sanders. I mean, I think there was some rumor that he was going to do it after Super Tuesday.
Yeah, I saw a rumor.
I don't. I think that's. Well, first off, I guess I can imagine it in the context of like, if you did really well at Super Tuesday,
then
you announce it like, hey, it's over.
It's over. I won.
I won. And so now we're going to start. We're starting the general election today. But if you do it after you've lost, it looks like a
it looks like Carly Fiorina.
Exactly. It looks like a gimmick. But next week, a week from today, Idaho, Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, North Dakota, and Washington. Look, Michigan is hugely important.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why Bloomberg drops out, I think. Because Bloomberg has invested heavily in Michigan, I believe. And because I think they saw that, Michigan is very important to Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, I think so.
It was the one that changed the tenor of the race last time in 2016, where all of a sudden, like, he could win, or it created the sense that he could win. I don't think he could at that point, but and it is obviously a state that Hillary Clinton should have won, and it is this is one that Bernie has to win, and I think Bloomberg does not want to split Joe Biden's vote there. Yeah, and that's the reason another is. And so they didn't know. They were bad. What? Trump voters. And that's because they did not send people out in the weeks prior.
Yeah.
They just sort of did a model as to who should be
They did a model. They didn't send out. They didn't get the list.
And so they didn't know that 1/4 of the people that they were driving to the polls was their opponent.
Yeah.
So never mind that it took extra time. So, and I just don't see Joe Biden.
Joe Biden's gonna have to. I mean, he just did this well on Super Tuesday with having one Virginia field office and having basically a skeleton like a campaign that barely exists physically.
And they're going to try to spin that to make it
They're gonna
look
say
like there's this popular upswell of enthusiasm about Joe Biden.
Well, I mean, that's the weird part about it, because, you know, even going back to the voter turnout amongst young people from earlier, like, if there was, like, this weird, like, gloating subtext, like, oh, like, what happened to Bernie's youth vote? Like, that's bad. It's bad that the youth are not coming out to vote in your primary. It's bad that the 18 to 29 people theoretically are not feeling engaged in your primary process, because that will translate to, like, the general election, theoretically. So, I mean, I think the Democratic Party, like, subscribes to bad habits during the primary that they just hope will, like, that they can just reset the clock once it's general election time. It's like, well, no, like, if people aren't engaged with the primary.
You are exactly right, and I think it's the idea that they can just hit a reset button in the general election, because I think when you look at those staggering youth numbers, what some people saw as a sign that everyone should get on the same page and vote for Joe Biden, other people, I think, who are younger and have been actually wanting to care about this saw as something entirely different.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I think that also has a possibility. Sorry to interrupt, but the possibility to these results right here have the possibility to actually mobilize a lot of Sanders support among the young. You know, like, Sanders already has a huge grassroots organizing campaign, and the people who were on the fence about coming out, like, hey, you know what, he's doing well already. It seems like he's going to win a lot of polls. They're going to be mobilized by this. So, like, I think the next 6 states, depending on what Warren decides to do, we might see a little bit of upswing there anyway, just in terms of people feeling more impetus to actually get out and turn out to vote.
The real concern I have about the general election, because as much as I have problems with Joe Biden, and as much as I think that 4 years of Joe Biden will bring us a more virulent Tom Cotton, I don't think that there is value in trying to play 8-dimensional chess with this type of stuff. Like, you go and you solve as many problems as you can in the most immediate fashion you can. But my fear of Joe Biden in the general election is that the people that you're talking about, like, we have two, people talk about this in terms of, like, moderate and radical lanes or whatever it is. There's also another way to look at it, and that is the lane of people who just want the person who is going to beat Trump, and they look for different cues as to where that happens. And then the other lane are people who are, like, invested in what the next president is going to do besides not being Trump.
Yeah.
And the problem with the first cohort deciding who's going to be president is that, again, they're the high propensity voters.
They're the ones who are going to turn out.
They're going to turn out anyways. And you have basically abandoned the people who have a different sense of what's going on. Now, you can judge those people. I personally do not. I actually judge them more favorably than the latter. But I'm saying, this is a message that I would give to, like, I'm preparing for what I'm going to say in, an hour on MSNBC, which is you can judge those people.
Are you going on MSNBC at like 12:30?
I'm going on at 1 a.m.
At 1 a.m.? We're all going to be delirious.
You can judge those people, but they exist. They are real. They are integral to making sure that Donald Trump is not elected. And so, ignoring that calculation, we do so at our peril.
Well, I mean, you can judge those people, the latter category, who just simply won't come out to vote if it's not Bernie or not somebody who's offering policies that affect them materially. But you know what? It doesn't matter if you judge them, because they're not operating in the same spaces where you're going to hear you judging them. It's just like the whole Bernie or bust thing is interesting and it's real, and it's like, it may not be like a coordinated movement. It may just be a sentiment amongst people, but like, the people who focus on it are focusing on like the people on Twitter and the people who are engaged in the political sphere in that way, who they feel like are their foils. Right. The real people who are real people they know who are in danger of not showing up to vote are the people who just aren't on Twitter. They're not watching MSNBC. They're not reading. Right. They're not reading these articles. And so you can yell about the Bernie or bust people. It's not about Bernie or bust people who are actively making.
They can't hear you.
They can't hear you. It'll make you feel better, but it won't make. They will never hear that. They will never hear you complain about them. They will never hear that they're responsible for Trump. They will never hear those things because they're just not part of that insulated bubble.
Yeah, they don't self-identify that way.
Yeah.
Like and it's not even right.
When we talk about Bernie or bust, the vast majority of people who aren't showing up, like people act like it's just a conspiracy on the part of people who listen to Chapo Trap House or whatever. That is a vanishingly small proportion of the electorate.
Right. The people who are actually like Bernie and bust, they've never heard the term.
They've never heard the term, yeah.
Bernie or bust.
They don't even think in those terms.
Let's see. Almost 3 in 10 Democratic primary voters in Super Tuesday states decided who to vote for in the last few days. This according to early results from NBC exit polls in 12 states. That I think, is consistent not only with voting with Biden, but also consistent with the idea of like, somebody tell me who's going to win.
Someone tell me who the hell to pick. Yeah.
10% of Democratic voters said that they made their decisions on Tuesday. Another 19% deciding over the past few days. 26% said they made their decisions in the last month. 43% made their minds up before then. That is the percentage you got to worry about, because those are the ones who are actually making an assessment about what these candidates are going to do as president. Early exit poll results shows that those late deciding voters broke decisively for Joe Biden. 40% decided in the last few days chose Biden.
It's just a weird dynamic. Just going back to the two pools of voters you talked about, where you have the people who are going to vote no matter what Democratic candidate that you put in front of them, no shade, and people who are actively making that decision. It's like letting a person who doesn't care what topping you get on your pizza choose what topping you get. Which is an analogy. One of my co-hosts made. And I'm stealing. It's like letting somebody who does not care who is going to what the topping on the pizza when you have a vegetarian in the crowd, and then choosing pepperoni, and then going okay, well that person can just pick off the pepperoni or whatever, and that person's also paying. That person's also paying for the pizza, and so so it's hard to not to fall back on an argument okay, well if it doesn't matter to you, if it really just does not matter to you, why do you even care? It's just if you're going to be if it's just
people keep sexualizing.
Even care. It's if you're going to be if it's just about hey, I want to vote for a Democrat, then we can skip all the fanfare and let the people who are actually engaged in the process decide. Of course, that violates the spirit of the whole process.
Slightly. We could just do property owners.
Yeah, but, honestly, it was definitely not a New York Times columnist.
You should all just get together. What do you want to eat? I don't know. What do you want to eat? You seem like you care more. Let me let you decide.
It's just, obviously it's not the way things work. It's just a little frustrating sometimes.
Kind of how it works at caucuses.
It's a little frustrating sometimes where you're like, okay, but you really don't seem to care about this to the degree that the people you're yelling against.
Yeah,
democracy.
Anecdotally, they were reporting on the caucuses. I think it was on Chapo, and they were like, okay, the Klobuchar people and the Buttigieg people, when their candidate lost and they had to realign, they were like crying. When the Biden people, when Biden didn't meet the threshold, they were like, okay,
I get to go home.
Yeah.
Are we leaving anything on the table? Brendan, is there any new late-breaking news that we should be aware of? Okay. All right, so folks, here's the deal. We'll probably put this back up as public tomorrow at noon or something like that. We'll take it unlisted and then we'll take it public. I will hop on YouTube and also post it to our stream. I'm going to do a little bit of a not dirty, but you know what I mean,
Bernie and bust.
Yeah, no, not an inappropriate thing. I'm saying I'm gonna just do a recap of stuff tomorrow morning to see where we are. I suspect it's not going to change too much, but who knows? Maybe I'll get into some type of fisticuffs at MSNBC tonight at 1 in the morning. Let's see. Maybe I'll run into Chris Matthews outside. I don't know. But that is, we are where we are at this point. I think I do not think this is over. I think there is still, Elizabeth Warren holds a lot of power right now.
Yeah.
I think in terms of being able to change the narrative. We shall see how she uses it. I think this is a really monumental point in the progressive movement and in her, career and whatnot.
Saving capitalist democracy and whatnot. No big deal.
We'll see.
I'm afraid she will continue to make the poor decision, which is unfortunate.
Me too.
Because, I think that she could go down, in history right now, or at least within the Sanders presidency, as someone with a lot of power in the Senate, as someone who can make or break certain laws coming into power. If Elizabeth Warren puts something in front of President Sanders, we know he's going to sign it.
Yeah.
We know she has that kind of power. We know that is a dynamic that she could create with Biden, not so much.
Highly unlikely. Yeah. Folks, Capterra, just a reminder, is the free online resource millions use monthly to find the best software solutions for their team, for their business, whatever it is. You can search through 700 specific categories of software, 700 different businesses. I know, I'm blown away by that. It's crazy. I had no idea. I thought there was basically two things as a kid that you could do to make a living: lawyer or car salesman.
I mostly thought of all the things Biden listed in his speech tonight.
That's right. Electrician,
firefighter,
exactly.
Pipe fitter.
But at Capterra, they get 700 specific categories of software. You can check it out. Over 1 million reviews of those very same products. So not only do you get ideas as to what solutions for your business, you get ideas as to what's the best version of that solution. Visit Capterra.com/majority for free today. Find the software tools you need for your business. Capterra, that's CAPTERRA.com/majority. Capterra, software selection simplified. So folks, there'll be right behind this one, there'll be another podcast for you, brief, I don't know, or just a little bit of an update. We'll be back live on Thursday, and we shall see. Isn't there some type of Chinese proverb about living in interesting times? You know what I would prefer?
Curse,
not to.
curse, right?
Oh, yeah,
No,
exactly.
everything under heaven is in utter chaos. The situation is excellent.
Is that some type of
That's Mao.
Mao, yeah.
Oh, is that right?
There's chaos under heaven. The situation is perfect.
Hang in there, folks. Alex Perrine, thank you so much. Folks, check out the New Republic and
our new podcast, The Politics of Everything.
Politics of Everything. I was going to say everything's political.
That was the original name, but we turned it around.
That's a smarter way. We shall see. Isn't there some type of Chinese proverb about living in interesting times? You know what I would prefer?
Curse,
not to.
curse, right?
Oh, yeah,
No,
exactly.
everything under heaven is in utter chaos. The situation is excellent.
Is that some type of
That's Mao.
Mao, yeah.
Oh, is that right?
There's chaos under heaven. The situation is perfect.
Hang in there, folks. Alex Perrine, thank you so much. Folks, check out the New Republic and
our new podcast, The Politics of Everything.
Politics of Everything. I was going to say everything's political.
That was the original name, but we turned it around.
That's a smarter way of doing it. And, of course, Brandon Sutton, Discourse.
The Discourse, yes.
And Alex Perrine on Twitter.
Just at Perrine.
At Perrine, okay. Good for you. And
at Pretty Bad Lefty.
Pretty Bad Lefty. Folks, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught, between the truth and the lie apart. Finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my
delegate. Think about that. Warren's only job in this race at this point is to be a spoiler. She has no capacity to win the race. She may get... Kamosha,
I think we're going to do really good. It's primary day in Texas, my home state. I wore my lucky
Let's jump back into this thing, into the fray. And let's do the news. Let's get back to the election. So let's see, what do we have so far in regards to totals or tallies? Alright, right here. Let's go from state to state and give an update. Alabama, with 3% reporting, Joe Biden at 62.3, Sanders at 15.7. Arkansas with 7% reporting. Joe Biden, 28.2, Sanders, 21.2, Bloomberg, 20.4. Again, it's hilarious that Bloomberg jumps into the race in order to stop Sanders and ends up helping that same Bernie Sanders. California doesn't come out yet. But Sanders is expecting a big result in California. Colorado, 4% reporting. They're giving it to Sanders, 38.3%, 24.4%. Sanders takes Colorado. Maine, 22% reporting. Joe Biden is at 35%. Sanders is at 33.3%. Warren is at 14.6%. God, please, if there is a God in this universe, in this non-matter reality, or anywhere, please keep her under 15%. 15.2%. Hopefully that goes down. She doesn't get 8 delegates. I would call that a celebration. 34.3% to 33.9%. Massachusetts with 12% reporting. Joe Biden at 33.1%. Sanders at 27.6%. And Warren 21.5%. Now, this is the race that is cutting into Sanders' numbers, allowing somebody like Joe Biden to limp across the finish line. But right now, 12% reporting, Joe Biden is in the lead. Minnesota with 1% reporting. Biden leads 47.1 to Sanders 26.1. North Carolina, Joe Biden has won with 19% reporting. Oklahoma, they've given that to Joe Biden also. 36.7 to 24.4. Sanders. Bloomberg, 14.8. Tennessee with 38% reporting. Joe Biden is leading. 32.7 to 24%. Texas with 4% reporting. Sanders leads 28.8 to 22.6. Wait a minute, that is the right. I thought 4 was reporting in Texas. Sanders wins Vermont. Joe Biden wins Virginia. And on a map, it looks a bit like this. Colorado, Texas potentially going to Sanders. Vermont with Maine, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Minnesota leaning towards Biden. But again, these places, there's only 4% reporting in Minnesota. There is 14% reporting in Oklahoma, 2% reporting, 3% in Arkansas. So there's a lot of way to go in these various states. Like I said, my nerves are on edge like nobody's business. So let's go to another story while we're here. Hillary Clinton is going to have to give a deposition. Now, that's going to get extremely interesting. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this was from Judicial Watch. That, you know what? Scratch that for the moment. This. If Warren is a friend of the left, then why is she using right-wing attack points in order to go after Medicare for All? Again, her strategy from day one has been to eat into Sanders' numbers and to sandbag him when the sandbagging didn't work, meaning the truce only lasted until Warren started to collapse. At that point, she couldn't accomplish her objectives without being more confrontational, those objectives being to sandbag him so somebody like Joe Biden can limp across the finish line. Warren has opened up new attacks on Sanders. Now, I hope somebody primaries her ass and that she loses her seat after this. I hope no lefty that would have backed Sanders supports her. That not one, that each and every one look at her behavior in this particular race and the fact that she was a creature of the party and she was going to use superdelegates to steal it away from the person who most likely would have won it. And they take that into consideration when they go to the polls and vote for her opponent. I don't give a shit who that opponent is.
Bernie thinks that we should raise taxes on middle-class families to pay for health care. And I've shown that we don't actually have to do that. I think...
Actually, Elizabeth Warren hasn't shown anything. The truth of it is, and this was reported in the paper, I think it was either the Times or the Post, that Warren didn't know she was going to have to show details for Medicare for All. And so all at once, she was scrambling to put out her particular healthcare plan because she didn't have a healthcare plan at first. She thought she was able to go through the primary just saying, I'm with Bernie, I'm with Bernie, I'm with Bernie. She is hiding a head tax, meaning Warren chose an inferior way of funding the program in order to not use the term tax. The reality of it is, though, she's hiding the ball. Meaning if Warren is going to put a head tax on employees, let's say somebody, I think it was like $9,000, it might be more, but let's say $9,000 a head. What does it look like if a person is earning $30,000 a year and a third of the money that they would have typically gotten paid is now going into healthcare? That's, nobody, like companies are going to get that money back in some way. And the way they're going to get that money back is cutting wages. So instead of that person making $30,000, maybe that person makes $21,000. Maybe that person makes $22,000. Meaning Warren is hiding the ball and she's using an inferior way of going about trying to pay for her public option, as opposed to doing what every other country around the world does, increase taxes. And the American public, for the most part, understands that if you're going to get health care, you most likely will have to pay an increase in taxes. This is not something that I think they ding you for. In fact, I think they give you more credit for being honest about it. She collapsed when she started making this very specific argument about her health care plan early on. And so her pissing in the wind in this very particular front. The issue with this video, though, is that Warren, who used to say, I can't believe somebody would get into the race without having these big expensive ideas, is now basically pushing Pete's plan and calling Pete's plan Medicare for All. And because people deem her less trustworthy on environment, less trustworthy on healthcare, less trustworthy on school or education, less trustworthy across the board, she has just become belligerent and just outright attacked Sanders. She has no chance for winning the race. She has no chance for, let's say it this way, her chance of winning Massachusetts are modest at best. Most likely she's going to go through this entire process on Super Tuesday and may get a few delegates from one or two states, something like Massachusetts. But for everywhere else, for the most part, just losing. And state after state after state after state after state after state after state, losing completely, thoroughly losing. And yet, she remains in the race. What is going to be her justification for remaining in the race after Super Tuesday? If she loses Massachusetts and loses pretty much every state and comes in either third or fourth in every state. This is Warren, who has no capacity to win, no capacity to win, to get delegates, at least not in any real terms, and yet stays in the race. She's supposed to be an ally of the left. Now, explain to me, how can you be an ally of the left when you have been belligerently attacking the person who the left has chosen to be their avatar, their champion? How can you do both? You can't. You can't. If Warren is pushing for big structural change, it's not her. And if it's not going to be Sanders, and it's not going to be her, because they are not, it is a ludicrous proposition to believe that the Democratic Party is going to choose somebody who couldn't even win a state. So if it's not her, then the only thing she could be using this for is to get some kind of leverage in order to get something at the convention. But that's not going to be for Sanders. That is going to be for the establishment Democrats, who will handsomely reward her for stopping Sanders to allowing one of them to get into the primary process. Think of how crazy this is. If indeed Warren is an ally to the left, then you need to explain to me how ripping or using superdelegates to rip away his support, or for that matter, not having any ability to win, and yet attacking the person with the best chance of winning in spades. How are you a benefit to the left under these terms? You're not. You're a creature of the party. That's all you've ever been. That's the argument that I've made. That's the context to which I've watched Warren, and that context has been more right than anyone else. Right now, she's attacking Sanders using a right-wing argument.
A much better way to do it is to raise taxes on the top 1%, to make giant corporations like Amazon and Eli Lilly that report billions of dollars in profits and pay nothing in taxes. I think cracking down harder on them makes sense. And my personal favorite, hiring more IRS agents to go after the rich.
I think the operative question for Warren is, why does everyone else around the world use a payroll tax for it? Why? Why do you believe that this head tax that you're pushing is somehow better? It doesn't raise as much money. It's less efficient. And again, the only reason she's doing this is for the political optics of saying, I'm not raising taxes. Well, no, you're not raising taxes specifically from the standpoint of the state, but your employer will drop those wages in order to compensate for the head tax that Warren is putting on people who these guys hire. Look, as you're looking at the states tonight on Super Tuesday, notice Warren's percentage. That's all I'm saying. Notice her percentage. Because in several states, you may have a situation where the numbers that Warren was bringing in, if that support was unlocked, then Sanders might have had a better chance to win it. Every bitter ender, every supporter that have bolstered Warren this entire time, meaning the Grimms of the world, the Biglins of the world, the Jake Eugers of the world, all of this, to some degree, is your fault. You share in responsibility for boosting this woman who is basically there to slay and stop and hobble and kneecap the left.
Turns out we could generate a lot of money from that. What really has changed is the field has now narrowed sharply, and this is going to be a race that really puts it to people about what kind of a leader we want for the Democratic Party.
Here's something else. Because Pete and Klobuchar got out of the race, it's now more of an opportunity for Warren to get delegates. Beforehand, Warren's votes were going to be split just by definition between Pete, Klobuchar, and whoever else was in the race. With Pete and Klobuchar getting out, Warren gets a modest bump because there's an element of votes that Pete was getting sharing overlap, at least not in large terms. With Sanders, you're going to have some, but maybe not necessarily a huge amount, which is why there was a 10-point jump immediately once they got out the race for Biden. You must also understand, though, Warren is going to also get a bump and has a higher propensity of potentially getting states now that her vote total is not being split by Pete in the race. Sanders, your enemies are circling you. And unfortunately, these people were never your friends. And you acted as if they were, and you bolstered her as if she was a friend of yours. She was not. I mean, there's a level of gullibility associated with this that is disturbing, to put it mildly. So I want you guys to see, so Hillary Clinton is back. Hillary Clinton is back. Ace saying, progressives will never forgive her. I will never forgive her. I will never forgive her. Ever. I mean, I haven't forgiven her, for being honest, in 2016. And now you come into 2020, she could have redeemed herself in some way. Yeah, screw that. Screw that. TYT is MS. See, I always call TYT MSNBC light. Michael Williams, the top 5 left. Trump has a nickname for everyone except Tulsi. That's true, but he doesn't really need a nickname for Tulsi because Tulsi's not going anywhere. Ed Klein, we winning? Well, we'll see. I mean, it depends on what Texas and California look like. Let's do a quick rundown to see if anything has changed. Joe Biden wins Alabama. Joe Biden leads in Arkansas with 12% reporting, 29.4 to 21.7. Bloomberg, 19.9. He's eating the Biden numbers. California doesn't come on until 11 o'clock. Colorado with 20% reporting. Bernie Sanders wins 36.3 to 23.9. That is actually a big win. Maine with 28% reporting. Bernie Sanders leads with 34.2 to Joe Biden's 34.1. Wow, that's so close. That's so close. That is so close. Massachusetts with 25% reporting. Joe Biden leads 33.4 to 28.7. Uh-oh, Sanders, get it in gear, man. Get it in gear. You got to win Massachusetts. Minnesota with 17% reporting. Joe Biden 35.7, Sanders 32.4. He's within spitting distance. Oklahoma, Joe Biden wins 37.4 to 24.5. That's with 77% reporting, but they're giving a win to Oklahoma to Biden. Joe Biden wins Tennessee, 60% reporting. Joe Biden has 36% to Sanders, 24.5. Texas, 5% reporting. Bernie Sanders leads, 28.8 to 22.8. Wow, that's a big lead. Utah, not out yet. Vermont, Sanders wins outright with 52.2% to 21.4. And Virginia, Joe Biden wins it 53.3 to 23.1. And Warren, once again, gets 0 delegates. No delegates in